Hi crew, and welcome back to another Spraycasso tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to be using two tones. So we're going to be using blue, light blue, and you know what, we can even probably add some white to it just to add some highlights. So the first thing I'm going to do, this is going to be a 16 by 20 canvas. I'm just going to go ahead and cover the entire canvas with our dark blue. The idea behind this is that I'm going to go over it later on with a lighter color. Make sure you clean your spray paint caps so that you have a nice flowing stream when you're doing this. Let's just go ahead and cover the entire painting. Alright, I'm going to get my light blue and I'm going to go over it. And this will give you a nice little cloudy effect, possibly a misty effect. I'm just going to add this throughout the painting. And this is what you get. Now using our Spraycasso funnel, a little bit of black, we're going to create some trees in the background. Now remember, one thing to keep in mind is, I know the trees are going to come out looking really thin, and that's okay because this will help us create perception. Right? The trees are far away, so it doesn't really matter if they're a little bit thin. As you get the trees closer to you, you're going to want to make them thicker. For now, let's just do the layout, and this is where our trees is going to go. Alright, add a little bit more black to our funnel here. Now I'm starting to thicken out the trees. This is going to give them a little bit more dimension. Perhaps we can even go out through here and add some bark, some branches coming out. There we go. There we go. Alright, you guys have seen me do this before, right? Very simple technique, but it will add a lot of realism to your paintings. I do intend on adding some light tones to these trees, so I don't want to make them too detailed, but I do want to give the effect they're going to be detailed in the background. So you want people to think that they're pretty detailed painting, but you know, our little secret. Now using the Spraycasso tool, nice little flexible straight edge. You can use magazine sheets to do this, but this has just been so much easier. It's going to create the terrain around the trees. See that? I was just using the tool. You're just going to go through it, add some terrain. Now let's zoom in. Alright. Alright, this is where we are going to add a little bit of light blue to our trees in the background. Now this will give it the effect that they're blending into the background. Perhaps there's light. It's gonna give them a fading effect. This will enable us to add another layer to our painting. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of black to our Spraycasso funnel here. Now see, the thing about the funnels, guys, you don't have to go very expensive on them. You can just use cardboard, poster board, pretty much everything that we as spray painters have handy at all times to create them. Alright, so this is where we create our overlapping layers. These trees can be a little bit darker. Yeah? Now that also gives you the illusion that they're closer to us. That's the whole purpose. Now remember, when adding the back layer, when fading it out, you don't want to do it too much to where the back trees disappear completely. Just a little bit, guys. A couple of sprays will do. Experiment with it. Alright, so this is a layer closer to us. I'm going to do the same thing that we did with the trees in the background. And that is to add some branches. Right here. Which is going to come out. And try and make them random as possible. Alright. There we go. Look at that, that's coming out really nice. Alright, we've made the trees a little bit thicker so that they look like they're closer to us. Now, you know, because we added so many layers in the background and kind of blended them in with the light blue, we're going to go ahead and create another terrain layer. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black here, handy dandy Spraycasso tool, and I'm just going to overlap some of the terrain that we've created. Alright, it's very easy to do. You just mirror the painting down, right? Or the paints down. Tap and smear, tap and smear. It gives you very creative and very unique looking rock textures. terrain slides. It's very neat, very neat. Right, now a little bit of clear coat. I'm just gonna blend some of the colors that we've already put down. That is the dark and some of the light blue in the background. I'm just gonna mix those together. Again, the way we are doing this, we just added some clear coat and we're just blending the paints together. A little bit of white. This will help us define the water a bit more. So I'm just using the flat end of the straight edge of our Spraycasso tool here, and I'm just gonna blend that in. Now notice how the white starts to separate the ground from the water. Just gonna add a little bit more here, and it creates some very, very unique looking waves. Right, just gonna tap on it again, just the edge. Look at that. Now I know I get a lot of emails, people saying, Spraycasso, you make that look easy. Guys, it is easy. You just have to practice it. Just have to practice it. Like anything else, right? Anything else in life. Alright, so this gives us a nice little flow effect on our painting. Makes it look like the water is nice and flowy. Alright, I'm going to show you guys a neat little trick that I use to create a realistic but yet quick piece of terrain. Using our Spraycasso tool here, I'm going to tap into some black, and we're going to create the edge. So the edge is going to be pretty detailed. As you can see, some of the smears, some of the touches that we're doing here is creating like a rocky effect to it. I'm going to do that throughout here, all the way to the bottom. Just like that. Tap, tap, tap. Now with the black, we're just going to cover the rest. Don't cover the edges that you just put. But notice how it gives you very defined, very textured piece of land. Okay, so we're gonna do the same. We're gonna create another one on the other side. Right about here, we're just gonna tap tap outer edge, just like that. Tap 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 tap. Look at that. Looks really good, doesn't it? I like to break terrains up like this, so that it gives the viewer more of a realistic feel to it, so that they can see that it's not just a piece of land that flat cuts across and then you have a pond. I like to add items in between. You guys remember the dream technique? The dream technique is something that I've used in the past. That's where I use a little bit of black and go all the way around my painting. I call it the dream technique because it gives it a nice little dark fading effect behind it. This is that technique, but just not quite as pronounced. I'm just doing it to cover the edges and to give the effect that we have tree leaves here that are getting closer to us. So I'm just going to tap tap just to give it some shadows here in certain areas. Here. Now keep in mind we're going to have a light source here, and the light source is in the background. Using a sea sponge, I'm now over tapping some of the overspray that we did earlier. This is how I do and what I do to create my tree leaves. Now, if you have pictures of trees and you have something to go by, then that's great. If not, try and keep it random. Also, you can change the texture by folding the piece of foam. Tap, tap, tap. If it becomes too repetitive, you can always fold it, tear off a piece, or just get a new piece. Right, we're just going to do that throughout here. And maybe, yeah, something right about here. What you could add too is maybe a deer in the background, some animal life. You can do all sorts of neat stuff with this. And you can add it as a silhouette. So it doesn't have to be too detailed. You could add it as a silhouette. You can maybe even blend it in the background. Now, using the grass strand technique, you guys remember that? We're just going to smear upwards. Now, you want to do this in areas that it overlaps some of the layers that you've placed in the back. Just to add it, this will add realism to it. And it's very easy to do because you just go upwards. Quick upwards strokes. Alright, now using a little bit of light blue, and the straight edge of my Spraycasso tool here is going to go up and down, and this will generate the effect of light hitting bark. This is a very simple technique, but it gives your trees so much reality to them. And as you can see, it's very simple. You just cover some areas. You want to represent where your light source is hitting it, right? So you don't want to cover the entire tree. In just certain areas, you want to give the effect tree is in 3D, right? So if you have your light source here and it's coming down, well, then you're going to want to add the light source on this end of your trees. And all it is, as you can see, is just quick little taps and strokes. This will give you the effect of bark. Alright, now that we have that down, I'm going to tear off a piece of our sea sponge. That looks like a good spot, and you get to determine what is a good spot. It creates different and very unique patterns throughout your painting. So I'm going to use this to create some of the tree leaves that are in the back. Now I don't want them to be as dark as our tree leaves in front. That's why I have those black. But I want to give it the effect that there is light kind of lining up the tree leaves back here. See that? Alright, we're going to do this throughout our background. That way, because there's obviously tree leaves back there. So you don't want to forget about them either. This is the kind of details that will draw your viewers into your painting. Tap, 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 tap. Maybe you want to add this to some of the rocks that are in the background. This is also really pretty good for highlights on certain items. See, I'm just adding some highlights right here throughout some of our plants, even some of our terrain. Again, this is just the light blue. There's nothing mixed to it. If you need something lighter, then you might want to put some light blue and then some white into that combination. In this case, we just left it with the light blue. Alright, I'm just going to go out here. I'm just adding some highlights to some of our trees, some of the plant life in the back, some of the tree leaves, and even some highlights to our current tree leaves, the ones that are really close to us. Alright, quick stroke upwards. This will create the effect there's grass in the back, and it's grass that is lightened by the highlights, by the light. Alright, tap, tap, tap. Now, if you see me tapping off before tapping into the painting, that's because I'm trying to get rid of some of the paint. Sometimes I don't want the highlights to be too bright. So I tap off on the distance somewhere and then come back into a painting. A nice little trick, but it'll help you balance out your painting. Let's take a closer look. Little dabs, see that? Little dabs creates the illusion that there's plant life, maybe little flowers. Tap, tap, tap. You can even add this to the water. This will create a nice little reflection of light. Let's create some flowers here. Another neat little technique that you can use is you can use this on the trees. You can go up and down on the sides of it. It gives it a light effect, almost like light is bouncing off of it. Now you can do this with light blue, or you can add a little bit of white to it, make it even lighter to make the effect. In this case, I think this is pretty good. Just gonna add a few more little flowers throughout the background. Here and here, here and here. Now, you could make this painting a little more colorful and actually start adding different colors to it, but for the sake of making it a quick tutorial, I thought maybe we'd just leave it as a monotone, keep it as a blue, light blue, and maybe dark. See how that sponge gave it that light effect, like light is bouncing off of it? Pretty neat, huh? Alright, a little bit of blue again. Let me get rid of some of that blue. Just gonna add some of the highlights throughout some of the tree leaves that we have closer to us. Now you want to overlap some of our highlights with some of our branches that we have. I'll just add a touch of realism. Tap, 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 tap. You can do this on the outer edges too. Okay. So here, and maybe a little bit on the outside. Don't forget to add your highlights to some of the terrain, like we did here. Just add a little bit of that blue on the highlights, on the water I mean. And it just brings nice little balance to the painting. Alright, well let's take a look at our painting. And this is it. Now you can always go back and add some more highlights or details, but you guys get the gist of it. I hope you guys join us next time as we create another amazing spray painting. Alright crew, until next time, keep those cans shaking. Spraycasso out.